Hey everyone, Alex here, and welcome to the second episode, or the first. This is still kind of a more of a preliminary one, or maybe just isolated thoughts. Yeah, I'm gonna have like different series on this channel, and this is gonna be isolated thoughts. I guess can kind of include the first one, the sort of the first video on this channel as that. Uh, Though it wasn't really popular, but I'll like get to that later. Get to more of that sort of thing. In terms of the deregulations that Trump has put on our doorstep and left to stink up the place. Let's say things that we are going to have to deal with. So here is Movement for a People's Party. I've been kind of looking into it for a while and participating or listening to the calls really. Uh, And the past week, I think it was, let me check. So I'm recording this in. Yeah, it was the first. Let me make sure that this is recording. Yeah. I have this program that just kind of has this window and it records other windows. Make sure it looks right. Yeah. All you see is really the internal parts of what I have on my browser. So this is the People's Platform. And we had amendments, like we voted on amendments to it on the 1st of March. And I think all of them passed, even though some were passed on a plurality vote. I'm gonna scroll through this. So there was some that I wanted to kind of mention. Um, First off, some that or two that were seemed to be kind of unconstitutional, more or less. So I think I'm actually gonna wait here a little bit. So kind of explain like the situation here. So the Movement for a People's Party is kind of an offshoot of the Bernie Sanders movement. It started by this person Nick Branya, and very much like as you can see, like very much a New Deal or New Deal or Green New Deal perhaps sort of thing. That's what we're kind of going at. Um, while I do prefer that government kind of back off eventually, so that we actually it's up to us, and we have like direct control of the situation, our economy, and thus we don't have the situations that we have now, just cropping up over and over again. Of course, like yeah, like this, like abolishing corruption. But if you don't have people to corrupt, if we're all here and, there's just like person by person, everyone, it's kind of hard to corrupt. They have to have like huge marketing campaigns like you see like Super Bowl or the Oscars. Um, if they want to actually have support, if a company wants support. So here's Medicare for All. I wanted to kind of mention before I get into things that I wanted to like the four amendments that kind of had issues. So I'm really hoping that Medicare for All has a like in its regional boards has like positions that are actually voted on. Like we can actually that so that the citizens actually have some amount of control over it, or technically control over it, if it is like if like the majority of board members are voted on. That would be best, because then it would make sure that we have like innovative procedures, and yeah, that's basically it, and also quality control. Of course, we'd have quality control parts as well. But the idea is that you know the idea is to make sure that the bureaucrats and the doctors don't completely like run everything. And also I guess we could also include the financiers, even people from the insurance companies, give them a little consolation prize or consolation for, us just completely wiping their industry out, just for a little while, at least. Fair is fair. So the first thing I wanted to emphasize in terms of like sort of unconstitutional things, ideas, amendments, that is. So there was a proposed ban on assault weapons. I think that was just like pretty much everything else. It was unanimously supported, but I'm not exactly sure what that implies. Like, would that mean taking away guns from people who bought them, or is it preventing the sales in the first place? That I'm for, totally, because the Second Amendment is it protects keeping and bearing arms, not selling them, not acquiring them, but to like you keep the guns that you have. You know. Now, granted, maybe there could be something in place like looking into someone's habits, like if they're actually threatening people, then considering that, you know just like with the First Amendment, if someone's really trying to be a threat to people, then yeah, that's got to be stopped, and that you can't let them do that. Absolutely. um so that kind of goes into the other amendment, the First Amendment, namely the part of it on the freedom of the press. So another amendment was about making sure that the press, the news media, is nonprofit, which of course that would mean eliminating for-profit entities that are for it, or that are in the media, which is it's it would kind of breach freedom of the press, and people would have a case against that. Unless we actually amend the amendments, which or maybe the Supreme Court says something about them, which seems somewhat likely because they seem to be kind of reaching support of this banning assault weapons thing, but that would kind of require like specific, like okay, like a specific definition of it, something that shoots like this much at that rate, or things like that, So yeah, we can go about these, for instance, like requiring a nonprofit press. If people are using the internet much, they tend to not really regard like the main, like in general, like news on TV all that much, uh, except for maybe comedians. But the main channels, not a whole lot, Um, but of course, some other things could be done, sort of supporting the news media that are actually nonprofit. For instance, I support Mint Press News at like $1 a month, and I give another $8 to I think hmm, Democracy Now. Yeah, that's it. With Amy Goodman and the Jose, what's his name? So that's that. Next things, the other two things I wanted to mention were um, amendments that were supported by pluralities, like 35%, 40% or so, but were opposed more than 10%. First off, there was there was I guess I'll mention the wait, let me see what's next here. Indigenous rights. I think that that small businesses that's coming up, which is pertains to one of the things I was going to mention. Of course, is immigration reform. Is this like completely supporting? Yeah, I consider like deportation to be like a breach of the Fourth Amendment. I don't care if they're technically a citizen or not. You're not you're not supposed to barge into someone's house and just steal them away. Like that's absurd. Okay, infrastructure. Yep. Mm-hmm. Although I heard that it's not entirely crumbling, but who knows? What do I know? So this particular one doesn't seem to be much about small business. It really just says there, they employ half of American workers, level the playing field. But this platform, this plank of the platform doesn't really go into that. I was thinking, now granted, like the idea of like small business holding off, like stopping Walmart or Target or something, that would be a little too difficult. That would require a union. But in terms of competing against products that are really expensive, for instance, healthcare or some lawyers or accountants or plumbers and other sort of professional blue collar professionals. The people like that charge hundreds of dollars an hour. Now, granted, they could if licenses and permits were perhaps loosened, more people could get into those. Perhaps they could diversify. Perhaps they could be an accountant half the day and a lawyer the other half, and or a plumber and then an electrician or something like that. Of course, that would also depend on having the right kind of capital, but oftentimes, if you're, say, going to be a barber, all you need is, like some scissors and, the other stuff, which is like, costs like maybe $100. And, if you're going to be, an accountant or perhaps a consultant or a lawyer, then you just really need a computer and maybe a book or two, if you're, specializing. So this proposition was actually one that I put up, this amendment, and it was opposed by, I think it was like 12%, which I have to admit, like, it doesn't kind of emphasize like possible other ways to make sure that, of course there needs to be quality control. That's the thing. Of course, like and in the case of rather intelligence intensive jobs, like, say, being a kind of lawyer or accountant, you'd have to know the specific kind of activity that you're going to be doing, like the laws around that. So there's that. But beyond that, I think that just an apprenticeship and some annual reviews would probably be good enough to ensure proper service. So there's the idea of like loosening regulations on potential small businesses, like licenses, permits, and also patents and copyrights. Let them last over just a few years instead of 10 or 20. You know. So the next thing, another thing, kind of the last thing I wanted to mention, which I think kind of pertains to one of the platform pieces around down this way. There's taking care of veterans. So basically, there's a proposed ban on um, food that is not organic, like inorganic foods, which I'm not exactly sure if organic is a whole lot better. There's at least marginal improvements for the animals and plants than when compared to inorganic foods. But the thing is that like outright banning the inorganic food is that's a lot. Like that's something, you know. Um, but we could still, emphasize, eating organic or just more sustainable, as it says right here. Um, so this amendment actually got just something like 20% support, which is I mean 20% opposition. So people were definitely at least aware that that like banning food that isn't organic is definitely an overstep and just something that is just I feel just really really hard to do, you know. So there's that. I think there's like one more piece of the platform and the promise and peril of technology. This is like kind of the best case for for socialism. Not in terms of like government control, but controlled by the people for the people. Um, it's just because eventually we're not really like there's only going to be a little bit of labor among everyone, which maybe the workday will be reduced not just to 30 hours and 30 hours a week, but perhaps 20 or even 10, uh, perhaps even even in this decade, or I mean a century, that is. So that's kind of good of a reason as any to seize the means of production, which that's it's gonna be a pickle because we're gonna have to most likely gonna have to fight for it. And here is the conclusion. I think I scrolled through everything. Yeah, I kind of skimmed through some of them, like disability rights, or needs, and veterans needs. I don't. I'm not too keen on calling them rights, or because like rights, you can't exactly tell if it's like a need or a freedom. Like in the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, they tend to be freedoms, but sometimes needs. So yeah. Anyways, that'll be it for this video. Next time will probably be at the. I intend to go to There's some kind of like rally that the Parkland student survivors are kind of setting up in in a couple of weeks. I think what's it called? No, I don't exactly know what it's called, but it's gonna be pretty big, and about gun control and all that. So I guess I'll be going around asking around, hey, what do you propose? What do you suggest? Consider is the best way to go about this, because it is a rare occurrence. Mass shootings are still a rare occurrence, but it's still like a major risk. Like it's like 1% chance you die, the other 99 you get like $100, and it's like eh. So that's gonna be it for now. If not that rally, I will most likely go to a May Day rally, um, which is well, Workers' Day really. So that's gonna be that, and yeah, goodbye.